if the whole team feels a certain type of emotion, then I think you will get certain responses. Yeah. For example, if you want your team, suppose you're the head of a sales team and you want your team to really take on aggressive targets, take on, bold targets. I think that the team should feel the emotion of, let's say, pride and an emotion of optimism. Yeah. I think that's if they feel those two, then I think they'll achieve it. If they feel an emotion of doubt or the emotion of,
fear,
they will not achieve it. Yeah. So you got to, as a leader, you got to say, what is the emotion I want in this team? Get that emotion.
Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Super excited about today's episode. We're joined by Krish Shankar, who's the Group Head of HR at Infosys. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. Happy to be on the show. I'm good. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say congratulations on the launch of the new book. Tell everyone a little bit more about the book and why you wrote it in the first place.
Well, it was an accident. I think sometime during the pandemic, I was just thinking, putting some thoughts together. And, those days we had lots of webinars and time for looking at various podcasts. And at that time, I thought I should really put some of those new ideas together in terms of how can we really make a contemporary HR playbook? I thought HR was a little too much of theory or too much of jargon for normal people. So I wanted to make it simple. So this book is called Catalyze. It's about looking at HR as 10 foundational outcomes, and how do you achieve those outcomes for any business? So I've tried to just make it quite simple for anybody to read it.
Amazing.
You should all try it and see and let me know.
Definitely. And as always, if you're listening, the link's already in the comments or in the description, whatever platform you listen on, so make sure you check it out. And of course, we're going to get into some of those topics during this episode as well. Tell everyone a little bit more about your background, Krish, and your journey to where we are now with Infosys.
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey, Chris, almost 40 years. I mean, I accidentally moved into HR. I didn't want to mean to move into HR, but a conversation with a kind of a senior of mine, and he said, why don't you look at HR? And that's how I got interested and did my post-graduation in HR from XLRI, which is a good school in India. After that, it's been many companies. I worked for about 20 years with Unilever with different roles and different kind of jobs. And that was phenomenal. I worked all across different businesses in London and in Singapore. Then I left Unilever after 20 years and went as HR head for an Indian telecom company, which was growing, a company called Airtel. And that was, again, phenomenal. I mean, we kind of set up HR systems. So I enjoyed that. 7-8 years there. And then briefly I was with Philips. But last 7 years now with Infosys, and here it's a Indian IT company. Now it's about 16 billion in revenue, but it's grown. I think we've grown. When I joined, it was about 9 billion. So good growth, lots of action, lots of transformation. So that's, when my early upbringing as a child was, from a small town India, and we never thought of a corporate job. We thought get to work in a bank or in the government. But I think somehow I kind of moved on, took this first job, first leap, and then Unilever really gave me a platform to learn a lot more. Mm-hmm. And that's how I've grown around in HR. So yeah, I've quite enjoyed it over these 4 decades almost.
Wow, amazing. You're aging yourself now. So you were doing HR and I wasn't even born yet. So you've definitely seen it. It must have been really interesting, your perspective, to see where HR was, where you started, versus where it is now. What's been the biggest change, you think, that you've noticed in those years?
Oh, it's a big change. I think it's a big change. I think, firstly, the complexity of business has increased. Yeah, the complexity of people decisions have increased, from wherever I've seen. I think HR has become much more what I call a true kind of science. In the past, it was a little bit of an art. There was people with experience doing HR. I think now it's a little more clearly a function. It's codified. There's some good practices. So it's a big change. And I think HR at that point, I think many of us were saying, are we at the table? Are we at the, are we at the heart of the business? So we are, the early years was an angst whether HR was at the heart of the business. But I think now people are convinced. I think now it's really become a true part of every business. HR business partners are truly contributing at the at the table. So it's a big change from what I'd seen those 40 years ago.
Yeah. How have you or how have you managed to stay up to date in your own skills and journey and growth during this time?
Well, I think I partly had a kind of what I call an academic kind of bent of mind. So I kept doing a little bit, some things or the other. I love to teach, so on and off. I used to go and teach somewhere. I read a bit. So I think that helped me stay up to date with some of the things that's happening. I think over the last few years, the social media, the podcasts, I think I kind of, listen to some of them, get some ideas. I also signed up to do a course in Stanford for a couple of weeks, almost 10 years back. And that kind of helped me think about new things. And then I went on and did my doctorate from the Aston Business School, where we really looked at, the role of emotions in transformation. And that was, again, a great learning for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I put it all together. So it's a mix of learning from social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, podcast, a little bit of reading books, a little bit of the network. So I kind of connect with people around, young people in other industries. I kind of was the head of the HR body in India, and therefore I use that to learn from people.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think I had this bent of mind to learn, to kind of keep, putting something and write something. And that's how I've been trying to be at the end, trying to keep myself what I call current.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to be, right? of how fast things are changing in HR and in business, you kind of have to be, and in the world, really, as well.
It is, yeah.
How's the so, how many employees now? 280,000 last time I checked. Is it more than that now? Like, how many employees do you have?
Now, yeah, as a group, now about 315,000.
Oh,
so it's growing.
Okay, a lot more than when I last checked.
I know.
Wow, that's incredible. What are
I think this IT industry last year has grown. For us, we've grown almost 20%. So it's a huge growth last year.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask then. What are some of the key challenges that you're facing within the tech industry, especially over the last 2 years with the significant growth?
Yeah, I think, this industry, we had the first couple of quarters of the pandemic was a little bit of a slowdown. We were not sure. But then the growth kicked up, because companies were kind of, doing transformation, more digital transformation, demand picked up somehow. And therefore, we found that, we had huge growth. And there was a talent shortage at the same time. And that led to a little bit of, every company went with high attrition. How do you get talent? So therefore, our challenge was get newer sources of talent, build talent from within, move talent around. That's one challenge. Retain talent, and you can't do composition increase all across because, people used to get jobs at much higher salaries, but you have to really think about it carefully. You have to focus on skills. So I think there was a whole focus on thinking about your value proposition as an employer. So what is it? Thinking about how would you retain people and the role compensation has in it. Thinking about career and how do you really ensure that you grow people from within and move them around, create faster progression for people, more internal mobility. And this whole thing about reskilling, how do you really, within the tech industry, it's all about getting people to get skilled and move around. So I think it was quite a challenging year and a half for us, looking at all of this together.
I bet. What were some of the specific things you did then? You mentioned some of them really, but to make sure you stand out, because you can't constantly compete on salary and keep paying everyone even more and more. What were some of the specific programs or projects that you did? Yeah,
I think we started, Chris, with thinking about our value proposition. What is it? And we did a lot of research, et cetera. We looked at what is Infosys well known for. So we kind of got our people to talk about it. And then we built our value proposition saying, this is where we are going to play. I think the three elements of our value proposition. I think the first was we said, we'll give you a job where you can make an impact, which is all about a meaningful job where they find purpose. So getting people to work on good technology, good projects where they feel they're making an impact. So that was the first part. The second part we said was your career will never stand still. So we really architected the whole thing about how can I give you faster career growth? how can it also give you options to move around? So therefore, you're doing one stream like you're doing project management. Do you want to move as a consulting stream, or do you want to move as a specialist programmer? So we created 3 or 4 options for people to move around. So therefore, they could choose those options. Yeah. So faster career paths, or much more easier to move around. Also created plans for people to, ensuring there is more internal growth for people. So that was the second bit. The third one we said you kind of, it's all about the employee experience. We said, we'll take you further along with everybody else. And that was all about our culture. So all about the managers that we have. And then we said we'll work with our managers. It's about how do you make this an inclusive culture. So, focus on diversity and inclusion. And recognition. So we really focused on those 3 key elements so that we can, build a kind of distinctive kind of value proposition. Mm-hmm. This worked, and therefore, but making this work in a remote thing is another challenge. You got to really work doubly hard to ensure that all this comes across in a remote way, the connections with people, etc. So I think that was the first thing that we started. I spoke to you about the thing. So therefore, this whole career architecture, thinking of skills, we created something called skill tags, where we identified about 36 skill areas. So people can learn those, do a course, and then get a skill tag. And then if they got a skill tag, we'll give them a small bonus. We created various things where people can, because of the skill, move up, and get a higher compensation. So I think it was a mix of putting all this together. It's a constant fight. Suddenly you'll have people going to companies for a big increase. But as long as we are consistent in thinking about it, I think we've been able to manage so far.
Yeah. You mentioned the skill tags and the upskilling. I think in one of our last conversations, you mentioned you put like 70 graduates a year and train them for 6 months through the program as well. Is that right?
That's right. So I think one of the things that we know is how we train our fresh graduates. Yeah. And therefore we had large numbers of graduates. They all go through a 6-month training. And as a company, we are quite global. So we had not only in India, we had in the UK, in the US, big numbers in the US, in Australia and Germany. And all of them go through that. They go through a bit of training, they work on some projects, and then they get onboarded to keep projects on there for the clients. And ensuring that during this training, they kind of, they learn, they do lots of on-the-job learning. That's critical. I think we work on that. We've come up with some innovations, some job on the cloud. So they do projects on the cloud, which will help them really get the skills and then get ready for the job.
Yeah.
We also created something called a bridge program. For example, we say, listen, we created a category called power programmers, which is like the elite programmers. And we said, you do a test. If you're good at it, and about 1% of the company pass that test, 1 or 2%. And if you pass that test, then we put you through a 3-month program, and then you become an elite programmer. So we do that. And that way we help people really upskill. And if they're very good, they go on to the higher level and become an elite programmer. So I think the whole idea is to give hopes and optimism to everybody that they can really learn, grow. And that really keeps the energy in the organization.
Yeah, I love that point, because one of my guests that I had yesterday was saying the same thing. If you're in an organization and you can't see that progress, or you can't see that you can be where those executives are, you can't see that journey, and you don't believe that you can go through that, you're probably going to leave. Whereas if you're in an organization where you feel like I have the opportunity, I could take charge of my career, I can own my career and my own learning with the support of the business, that's kind of where the magic happens, right? As well. So I love that. For the skill tags, like, does that sit in the system you've built personally, that your career marketplace, or do you work with a vendor for that? Just out of curiosity, because this is a very, that many employees.
Most of it we've done ourselves. We've kind of looked at, I think our learning system is called Wingspan, which we've developed ourselves, which is like a 24/7 mobile-enabled learning system. People get skill tags. Again, we've developed our own system so that.
No surprise there, we're a technology company.
For a performance management system, which is a little bit on conversations, we're looking at a vendor, which we are now going to onboard. So that's the one where we got vendors. But otherwise, we try and do something on our own.
Yeah, well, you are a tech company. So it's not like you don't have the skill set to be able to do it. I was just wondering if you would check, even with large companies that in tech companies I speak to, sometimes they just choose to outsource it just to keep it less complex. But
that's right. I think the advantage of outsourcing is good, but I think, when you want to make it
tailored,
very, very much customized to your needs, then you try and develop it yourself. And it, for us, given our scale, it helps if we can develop it ourselves.
So have you built a talent marketplace yourselves where you can?
Yes.
You have. Wow. Okay.
We have a talent marketplace. We call it Fluid. That's a talent marketplace. So people can put up jobs there. There are various types of jobs. You can, either there is a, IJP that you can, like a job posting that people can do, or you can say you're interested in doing something and managers can just go and look at it and, get you in there. So we've got various options in our marketplace.
And then within there, you can see people's tags for the different skills they have.
Yes.
Okay.
So they can do that. We also have created something called a DQ, or a digital quotient, which gives them a kind of a measure of their skill. Yeah. So if they've done lots of courses, if they've done some interesting projects, and therefore their DQ goes up, and people can see that. And if they see my DQ is 70 or 80 and I'm at the top percentile of my group, then I think, I get pulled into many more projects. So yeah, people can see what are the things they have done, their jobs, the skills they have, and their DQ. So that's how we try and get them to learn. So
and also you're encouraging
they work on their DQ that helps them to get jobs.
You're right. You're encouraging them to go back in and they can see the direct results and the benefits. So you said that was it called the digital quotient?
Quotient, DQ. Yeah, that's what we do.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting name.
If you play FIFA, then you get those cards, right? You get the number there. 97, 98. So it's like a card. It says, here you are.
But it's amazing that they can have they can influence that, right? Through their learning and through, so that's really, again, talking about taking charge of their career and their learning, right? To empower your employees to do that. You're going to increase engagement and I'm sure retention as well along the way.
Yeah.
On that point, we spoke before, and you talking about how are you building that new model for engagement? Because I know that's something you and the team have completely revisited and looked at. Could you share more about what you're doing in that space?
Well, I think the challenge we've had is because of this remote way. How do you really engage? As a company, we've been, we've got a strong legacy in India. Great campuses, wonderful, lawns and buildings and stuff like that. But how do you engage people in a remote way? And that was a challenge. So we thought together and came up with what we call as a 5C model. I mean, nothing new, but just looking at the 5 key things. One is connecting with people. So how do you ensure that managers connect? A lot more care. So focus on well-being, focus on health, ensuring that mental health. So therefore, that was the second one. The third was celebrate. So a lot more recognition. Talking to people about how, and we created a new recognition platform, and that was the other one that we did. The fourth is all about collaboration. And therefore, we got teams together. We did an intervention called Power Teams, where we got teams together for a couple of hours, where they would just give feedback to each other, look at what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, and then they'll work on their own development plan, and they work on a kind of a goal for the team. So that really energized them. So we got them together in that. And lastly, it's all about culture. So we said, focus on our culture. So these are the 5 key things that we've been focusing on. I think a lot is to really do with our managers. So we work with our managers, train them a lot. We have a program called the Great Manager Program. We recognize them every quarter, the ones who are doing very well. They have a dashboard where they can see how they are doing, in terms of attrition, retention, development of the people. So idea is to really make them the kind of levers, the key catalysts for managing this whole engagement.
Is that real time as well? So, because normally as a manager, you only find out at the end of the year if you're doing a good job. So they can see that dashboard in real time of how they're doing and how they're performing. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a real time dashboard. Even our engagement is real time. I think we try and we've come up during the pandemic. We came up with a new engagement kind of a measure, and we measure 3 things. One we call as our EVP index. This is all about careers, compensation, growth, etc. The second we call it as a resilience index. This is all about wellness, collaboration. Are you getting the right support? Is there leadership? Leadership there, direction for you. And the last one we measure is our culture index. This is all about our culture of meritocracy, inclusion, you feel good working here. So I think these 3 managers can see, and they can see where they are in their teams, real time. Every 15 days, we have questions
Wow.
that come up and pop up, and people fill it up. So yeah.
That's amazing. How have you managed to do that? How is it surveying? Like how are you capturing that data and turning it around so quickly?
Yeah. So it's every time, every 15 days, every time you open your computer, you go onto our intranet or you go onto our app, that'll pop up. So you got to do it. So we get people to do it, every 15 days. There'll be a set of just 5 questions. Every 15 days, five
Keep it
questions. So they
simple.
keep on filling it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we build it. And it's like a platform which you put together. And there is a dashboard using Power BI, a dashboard for managers who can see it live in terms of what
That's
people are
great.
saying.
Yeah. How do you communicate that you're actually actioning it on that feedback? Because there's a lot to ask every 15 days. How do you make sure that your employees know that we're listening, but we're actually taking actions? How do you communicate that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. What we do is, I think we, at the end of it, while this feedback is coming every quarter, we go back, we put it all together. Every quarter we go back, and the team has to get back to the managers and others saying, this is where we are. We've improved. These are the areas where things are not done well, and they try and give the managers a kind of headline saying what are the actions that they should do, we should do, and then the managers go to the team saying, this is how we've heard, this is what we're doing. So
That's
I think
great.
they try and connect once a quarter on the results. Well, that's the intention. Some do, some may not do, but I think this is where every quarter go back, have a chat in your team on what you're doing, what you can do, and take
Yeah.
it from there.
But regardless, those managers can see that in the dashboard all the time. So you'd hope
They
they're
can
gonna
see all the
yes. So you're gonna hope that they're gonna feed that back to their
yeah.
teams as well. But if they don't, then once a quarter you have a specific focus
That's right.
on
Yeah.
doing that. Wow, so many great things that you're doing along the way. We went down a rabbit hole there, and I forgot where we were when we started. Oh, we started with obviously the engagement side. How do you build this? Like how do you build gratitude into the process? Is it through mentoring, coaching, the feedback? Like, where do you see as the best way that we can do that and talk about, because you speak about in your book, in your work, about collective emotions and how they can help transform organizations. But how do you do that practically, if that makes sense?
Okay. Well, you get me to talk on something I'm really passionate about.
Okay.
I think it's very simple. In the past, Chris, I think, if you look at the logic or the thinking a few years back, people said managers have to be without emotion. You got to take emotion out and you got to take your decision. No, that's how we've been brought up. But I think now research shows that emotions are very powerful, yeah, and you can really use them. So I think there's lots of research which say that, if people can kind of, work with their emotions, you can get much more out of them. Now, collective emotions are, if the whole team feels a certain type of emotion, then I think you will get certain responses. Yeah. For example, if you want your team, suppose you're the head of a sales team and you want your team to really take on aggressive targets, take on, bold targets. I think that the team should feel the emotion of, let's say, pride and an emotion of optimism. Yeah, I think that's if they feel those two, then I think they'll achieve it. If they feel an emotion of doubt or the emotion of
Fear.
they will
Yeah.
not achieve it. Yeah, so you got to, as a leader, you got to say, what is the emotion I want in this team? Get that emotion. Take another example. For example, you want teams to collaborate. There are two teams, and you're saying, listen, and I've seen this in my old company, where between marketing and customer service, we always used to have, saying who's right, who's wrong. Now, if you want to collaborate, you say, what kind of emotions are needed? I think just two emotions here again. One is an emotion of, let's say, compassion, yeah, empathy or compassion. And the other is an emotion of gratitude, saying, yeah, listen, these guys are doing a good job. I'm thankful to them. Get those emotions. Yeah. So that's how anywhere, any team, any situation you see, what is the collective emotion you need, which will help you achieve your results, and try and get those collective emotions. The next point is, how do you build those emotions? Yeah, and very simple. For example, if you were to build gratitude, I think of 2 or 3 small things. In the team, you say, listen, why don't we every month kind of, put a post-it saying just a gratitude poster for each one, saying, who's helped me, who's not helped me kind of thing. I think that makes people be thankful to each other. create a thing saying, listen, at the end of every month or every quarter, you go and thank one or two people who really helped you during that quarter. So create that feeling of, put that and, do that. So small things. And I think as a leader, you say, listen, I want to thank people who've done every month. I want to have my thing, and I want to show gratitude to them, and that really creates a sense of people all feeling thankful to what they've been doing. Yeah. Now, so that's the way you do it. The other one is what are people thankful about? People are thankful for good career advice. People are thankful for learning and somebody investing time in them. People are thankful to organizations for supporting them in their time of need. Yeah, they are really thankful of these things. So get those there. How do you get good career conversations and career advice for people? How do you help them work on their own development plan and say, listen, and we'll help you achieve this development plan. And there's somebody who's going to help you do this and complete it and grow it. And third, if they're in any difficulty, get the whole team behind them to help them out. I think that will create a strong emotion of gratitude in the team. Yeah. So I think it's no rocket science, maybe simple things that you can really do. So I think that's what I would. It's you go to anywhere. I mean, you go to, for example, you go to a football team. You're going to go play a match today. Look at what emotions you need and try and create those. So it's a simple thing. Just by doing a regular set of routines, regular set of what we call as leader behavior activities, you can create those emotions.
Yeah. No, I love that. And on it, I would say I haven't thought that way. And it's very interesting to, before going into a conversation with the team, etc., asking yourself that question, what are the emotions that I want to invoke, right? I doubt many people do that,
They don't, yeah.
So having, a reminder, just that, maybe I'll probably, for my next meeting, will probably set a personal reminder to myself, asking myself that question before I go into that meeting. What is the emotion that I want to invoke? And you gave some great examples of ones there, and great ones of sales, which I've personally been in sales teams where they've led with fear. You have to hit this target, otherwise X, Y, and Z. Those teams fail. We all see that. Where you get others that we're in this together. We want to help each other achieve it. If someone's falling behind, we all pick them up. And there's that pride, and that sense of we can overcome everything together to achieve it, right? Along the way. Very different. Very, very different as well. Yeah, I love that. And back to the point about transformation, without that, you're not going to get through these hard times, right? As an organization and as a team, talking about transformation and change, you need those. You need that glue that keeps everyone together.
That's right. I think it helps really, and helps managers think about it. Any CEO or any leader of any team think about, okay, what kind of emotions I need? I got a big project to go on. What kind of emotions? And it's no rocket science, but just consciously thinking helps you, build it in a positive way.
No, I love that. Before I let you go, I want to jump into a question in which I've seen you speak about before, which is the top roles for HR in the future. And I know there's 3 areas you want to focus on. So what are the top 3 roles for HR in the future?
Well, I think this is another thing in terms of, there's always a talk about what is HR going to do? Is there HR relevant in the future or not? And there's been always a lot of talk about it. I think the traditional thing that Dave Ulrich gave, the administrative expert, the change champion, the business partner, that's anyway there. That's now become like day-to-day work, and technology is changing some of it. Administrative expert now really, it's given. But then if you are really leading HR, what are the key 3 things? What are the key roles that you got to work on? I think the first one, I think, for the future is you got to create a set of fair, equitable, and inclusive processes. Yeah, that's very important, because that's the bedrock on which every company works. And HR has to be, I think, an advocate for that. HR has to be an advocate. HR has to be pushing for that. Yeah, so that's the first role.
Why is that so important, though? Why is that so important?
I think, in the future, as I see, because having inclusive, equitable thing is really makes people feel that we all have a chance. They feel there's no bias in it. They feel that this company will be fair and they'll all give their best. if they don't feel that, then you'll find people kind of, circumventing things and fighting with each other. Yeah. I think that's not only is it good to do, but it is good for the business to do that. So I think having, a fair, inclusive and equitable set of processes. I think that's the first role of HR. Question everywhere, is it fair? Is it equitable? And try and do that. Yeah. So that's the first one I would say. You got to be a kind of an advocate for that.
And you described that before, didn't you, as an inclusive organization designer, which I thought was really interesting.
That's right. Yeah, you got to design processes. I mean, there are, for example, even in your performance management, is it designed properly to ensure it's inclusive, fair, and equitable? If, for example, you have something where you're doing, simple leadership development programs, ensure that's there. So I think as HR, if you can design the organization where every manager, every leader, every person feels that they're doing the right thing, being inclusive and fair, then I think you would have done the great job there. I think the second one role is what is our role is really to coach people, employees or talent to be at their best. So we got to be a partner to them and coach them, saying these are some things you can do. As HR, you may not be able to coaching every employee, but you should coach managers. You got to coach them to be the best that they can be. So I think our role is being a partner and a coach to talent, and setting up processes so that people can learn and do something, and grow. So that's the second key role. In the future, you need more people to continue to learn. You got to ensure that you're motivating them to learn. You got to tell them the right things to learn, and you got to create the environment for learning. Yeah, and that's going to be a key role that HR plays. I think the last role, so therefore the second role is the one of talent partner and coach. The third one is what we spoke about earlier. It's all about how do you create a culture. Yeah, culture is at the macro level, saying this is what is the set of behaviors, a set of experiences or memories that people will talk about the company. But at the micro level, it is the set of emotions that every team needs. The right collective emotions, and that's where HR should help the managers, help leaders to create that. You're going to have, for example, you're getting a small team together for a town hall, and you're starting a new year which has got some tough targets to take. So what emotions do you want to see in people? You want to see emotions of positivity, optimism, and the pride of working hard and winning. So bring those emotions out. So I think HR should coach people on that. So culture, as I see, is a broader umbrella, but those collective emotions are much more time dependent and situation dependent. So I think that's the role that HR has to do. So three key roles: a designer of inclusive organization, designer and advocate of inclusive organizations, a partner and coach to talent, and thirdly, a culture architect. So these are the three things I think are critical for HR in the future.
Amazing. I'd love to hear from our audience. Let us know in the comments. Do you agree? Are we missing something there? I love that. Well, listen, honestly, thanks so much for coming on the show, Krish. It's been a pleasure. And before I let you go, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out and connect with you personally? And also, where can they grab a copy of the book? Because I want to get this in the hands of as many people as possible.
Okay, fantastic. I think firstly, let's start with the book. Here's the book.
There it is.
It's called Catalyze. You can see it, hello book there. You can get it in India, anywhere in the shops or Amazon. I think overseas, you can get it on Amazon Kindle for now. So try it out. It's called Catalyze. I think people can connect with me. I'm happy to connect with people on Twitter, Krish Shankar 21. You can get me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I think I'm okay on LinkedIn, not very regular, but yeah, I'm pretty okay. I think, and if people want to mail me, I can give you my email address. I'm happy to really answer any questions or connect with anyone who wants to learn more.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that.
I'll save your email because you're going to get way too many emails, so I wouldn't put that in the description. But we'll put your LinkedIn, we'll put your Twitter, and obviously the link to everyone to buy the book on Amazon. Or Kindle or wherever they can find books as well. But thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. We've learned a lot. I think you're definitely going to get a lot of questions from our audience. But keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, Chris. Pleasure being here. You've been doing a fabulous job. So really happy to be on the show and share some thoughts. So thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.